Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of our series about archaeology and restoration at Somerset Place. Last time, Matt covered the 1992 ECU excavation of the slave kitchen, part of the site's shift toward an inclusive narrative of slavery and plantation life. The following year, the North Carolina General Assembly appropriated $300,000 to begin reconstructing buildings where members of the enslaved community lived, worshipped, or worked. The first step was to locate and document the sites of those buildings through archaeology. The Department of Cultural Resources contracted with Diachronic Research Foundation, Incorporated to excavate the structures. Their goals were to, quote, document the architectural components of the structures to allow accurate reconstruction, end quote, and to mitigate damage to the building sites from future reconstructions by recovering artifacts. Archaeologists also sought to interpret their findings about the enslaved community to provide Somerset staff with more accurate information. Historic Sites personnel chose 5 structures to excavate: the lake chapel, a possible kitchen, hospital, large slave quarter, and small slave quarter, along with the adjacent walkways and roads. Archaeologists already knew where to excavate the chapel, hospital, and large slave quarter, but they only had tenuous information about the kitchen and small slave quarter. Fieldwork began in June 1994 and continued through September with at least 10 people under Carl Steen and Patricia Sanford. They followed the archaeological grid established for the 1981 field school, which divided the site into large blocks. Within those blocks, archaeologists generally excavated 5-foot squares by removing each layer of the soil, recording features, and plotting artifacts. Workers first screened the soil in 2 stages using mesh in order to recover cultural material. They removed dirt in dry screens and then washed what was left in a water screening station. Finally, contractors dried, bagged, and sorted the artifacts for later cataloging and analysis. Throughout the process, Steen and Sanford documented their work with detailed notes, drawings, and photographs. But archaeologists also faced several challenges, including from the ground itself. They found the soil layers hard to read, quote, consisting primarily of silty loams in various shades of gray. Weather compounded that problem by creating, quote, a huge mud hole one day that was a steaming pit of unneeded supplemental humidity for days afterwards. Workers also struggled to interpret the effects of previous archaeology and restorations, which were naturally destructive. The disturbances that resulted from well-intentioned excavations, backfill, grading, and leveling, especially those conducted in the 1950s, quote, have robbed most of the street of its archaeological integrity. But enough material remained for archaeologists in 1994 to draw their own conclusions, and over the next several videos, we'll take a closer look at each of the structures they excavated. You can also learn much more about the 1994 excavations in Carl Steen's book, Restoration Excavations at Somerset Place Plantation State Historic Site, which is available for sale in our gift shop. Be sure to subscribe and ring that bell to receive notifications about our upcoming videos. And until next time, thanks for joining us.